That's intro music, everyone. Hi there. Welcome back. And this one's going to be in the Mesa series where we talk about Mesa and how to get it running and how things go. And I'm very happy to have Ann Toole with us today. Hey, Ann.
Hi, Frank.
How are you doing today?
Well, it's rainy here in Belgium.
Rainy.
And it's much better in Arizona. I guess that's where you are.
Raining. It never rains in the desert. I won't say never. Actually, our wet season is July and August. That's when the monsoons roll in. So that's when we get most of our rains, when it gets a lot more humid in the desert. But today is not that day. We're still in early summer. The power switch has not been hit yet, so the temperatures are still pretty mild. The humidity is down, so yeah, it's doing well. So raining. So is summer or spring maybe approaching in Belgium?
Well, it's supposed to be spring. It feels like end of winter, but so yeah, the trees still have no leaves. I mean, some of them. So it's very late this year. Yeah. I'm thinking we are paying for last year where we had a wonderful spring and summer.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. So you look like you're in your home office here.
Well, of course, pandemic, etc.
So are you allowed back in your institution, or are they still on lockdown?
We're still on lockdown. Basically, they accept 20% presence on campus. So, you're allowed 1 day a week if you don't share an office. So basically, I'm working from home all the time.
Okay, cool. And for those who don't know, Ann is a Mesa developer. So she's one of the 17 now members of the core development team. And today we're going to walk through a quick start on getting started with Mesa. So I'm going to do a little screen share here. And we will begin this adventure from the Mesa homepage. And let's say you wanted to get a quick start on getting going with Mesa. So you need to get to our spiffy new documentation, and you can't get that directly from the source forge. So you can click on any of these over here, like let's just say control defaults, and you'll see that the primary Mesa documentation has moved to docs.mesastar.org. Older documentation for 12.778, 12.115, etc., are now in an archive. But we're going to be talking about 15.140, and so going forward, we're going to be using this spiffy new docs. So you click that, and you go over to our docs, and of course, you asked for control, so that's where we're at. We're going to be interested in quick start, so we're going to start there. But we'll start from the top, which is docs. So this is our spiffy new docs menu on the left, telling you how to get to some of the major areas, and those then have scaffolding menus to take you down to specifics. And today we're going to do quick start on installation and using Mesa. And Ann, why don't you take us away?
Yeah, okay. So one thing we noticed from the messages that appear on the Mesa users list is that people are lost a lot of the time because there is so much information available that it's hard to get to the documents in the right order when you first install Mesa. So we're gonna go quickly through the first steps of installation and then the first steps of using Mesa. And if you do those steps in the right order, it should help you avoid, and it should avoid a lot of questions you have. So the first thing to do, of course, is install Mesa. So you click on installing Mesa, and there you have all the information you need on what are the requirements for your system, what you have to install on your computer, and how to start with Mesa installation. There are several videos to explain that also that Frank did with, I think, Meredith, another Mesa developer.
Yeah, we do have a couple videos on installing Mesa on OS X and Linux. Yes, we do.
So you first, of course, download Mesa, and then you go through all the steps, which are, setting your environment variables, downloading the SDK, which will help you with the installation. Once you've gone through all these steps, you do /install and you install Mesa on your computer. Exactly, which Frank is showing you here. So once that is done, if you have installed everything you should have installed earlier, you should have this very nice message that says Mesa installation was successful. It takes a while before you get that message because Mesa is heavy. There are lots of things to download and then a lot of things to install. So that takes a while, but then you get to this very nice message. So of course, if you don't get that message, that's where you go to the troubleshooting section and you have to check a lot of things. And once you've done all of that, if it still doesn't work, you consult the frequently asked questions page. And if that doesn't help, you search the Mesa users mailing list archive. And then if you don't find the answer to your question, you can pose your question to Mesa users.
Mm-hmm. But when you post to Mesa users, say something useful, like
right. When there is, there are many times we get the message, this doesn't work. What do I do? Well, there are a lot of things that developers need to know in order to answer your questions. And all those things are listed here in this page. So you have to give them which Mesa version you use, which Mesa SDK you use, describe what machine you have, and then there are a few, like five commands that we ask you to run and give us what answer you get. Once we have all these, you can we are going to be more helpful than if you just say, I've installed Mesa, it doesn't work.
Right. But in the vast majority of cases, you're going to end up here. And I'll just say on my particular systems, takes a border 10, 15 minutes to get a full compile.
Yeah, same on mine.
Yeah, that's not too terrible. All right, so that was the first thing, installing Mesa. And so we're back on the Quickstart.
So, of course, now you've had this wonderful message saying Mesa was successfully installed. You will want to use Mesa, right? So Mesa is built to allow users to run experiments in cell evolution. There's a lot of freedom given to the users about what they can do with Mesa. So the users have to build their Inlists. The Inlists are places where you put the things that will characterize the star you want to evolve and the physics you want to use in the evolution of the star. And there are many controls that enter into those Inlists. And this can be very overwhelming when you use Mesa for the first time. Mm-hmm. A lot of the controls have default values. Most of the time, the default values will not be good for the science you want to do. So you do have to learn about all these controls and make sure that if you use the default values, they are good for your science. If not, change them and make them good for your science. That's very important. So there's going to be some learning curve here because there are many things that you will have to set up. But we did set up a few examples that are in the subdirectory star test suite. These the examples that are in the test suite are meant for two things. One is it helps the developers test new versions of Mesa all the time. And so for that, they are built so that they test certain parts of Mesa. And then we also want to give you some examples of Inlists that are suitable for some types of stars, massive stars, low mass stars, main sequence stars, white dwarfs, whatever. So there are a lot of examples there. Now, like I said, they are also used to test Mesa. So they are not necessarily perfect for a science case, in the sense that there might be simplifications so that it runs fast enough. The time step, the mesh controls might not give you perfectly converged solutions to your evolution. So you will have to change those test suite cases Inlist so that you make sure that whatever you want to model with your star is rightly described in the controls you use, and also make sure that you have converged evolutions.
Indeed.
Um,
then there's a whole listing here of all the different types of tests, right?
Right.
13 pockets, horizontal branch, etc. And so on each of these, you could test it. Let's just take a peek at conductive flame, for example. Let's dig into this one. And so on this nifty new documentation, each of the test cases has a discussion about that test suite. There will be some discussion of what's in the Inlist. Usually there's a plot or a movie of what the test case will look like. And you can do that.
So, right.
All kinds of binary.
So you can go there to get some inspiration of what you put in the Inlist.
Right.
The examples.
Yeah, that's what that means.
And we are continuously updating these, so new versions of Mesa, when there will be another public release, will have even more documentation.
Indeed, this is 15.140, and documentation is an active part of Mesa development. Okay.
So moving from the test suite, there is also a section in the documentation which is called about building Inlist. So there you are, using Mesa, running Mesa, building Inlists. So this explains to you that how the Inlists are set up. They have different sections: star job, controls, EOS, cap, PG star. And so each of these modules concern a certain type of controls that you will have to put in. So this section describes a few of these modules and controls. It's not exhaustive. We've put a few things here to start. This will be, fleshed up. I mean, it will be increased. There will be much more in the next release. But this is the place to go and look for what the controls do. They can be separated into controls for time step, controls for winds, controls for mixing, controls for which reaction weights you want, which equation of state, things like that. They're all going to be described here. Right now, it's not very complete, but we are actively working on making it much better for the next release.
For example, let's take, so if you, on the left menu here, these menus are drop down. So if you want to learn a little bit more about the controls, for example, Anne mentioned time step and grid controls. So if you click on that, yeah, there's not a lot in there right now. Okay, oops.
Yeah.
But it will be better on the next one for sure. But yeah, it's a start of some nifty new documentation. And so if you don't see something there, go ahead and drop us a line. But yeah, okay. Building Inlists. So there's some guidance on building those Inlists.
Yeah. So once you've gone through all of that, you should have a good idea of what an Inlist is. Like if you go also on the Mesa, I mean, we skipped a step here. The first step is to go through the example detail here, running Mesa. Top of the page, fine?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So no, I mean, using Mesa, and then there's running Mesa.
Oh,
go down.
There we go.
Yeah, there. So on the Mesa webpage, there is an example that you can do, which is in the an example work directory, and this is a tutorial. This is an example which is a tutorial, And this is probably the first thing you have to do before even going to the test suite. Just run that tutorial completely and make sure that you can make it work, because that's one that's been made to help you start with running Mesa.
Yep.
And after that, this is just one example. Then you go to the test suite and you look at other examples with things that are more like the style you want to.
Escalation from starting with the tutorial to the test suite to much more complicated things that people have actually published with.
Right. Then you can go to the Mesa marketplace. That's the place where people are supposed to put the Inlist that they've used to publish papers. And so you have the papers that are there, and then it should list the Inlists that they've used to run their case. That's something that we ask the Mesa users to do, because this is open source and it's about sharing. And so results have to be reproducible, which means that people can use the Inlist you've used to reproduce your results.
There's
a lot of
people are fairly good about sharing their.
Yeah, one thing to be aware of is that you can see the Mesa version that has been used. So if you go to an older version, the Inlist might not work with the new release. So you will have to adapt the Inlist to the new release version of Mesa. Yep. Some controls have changed. So that's documented in each release version. When there's a new release, there is a documentation that appears that explains the changes compared to previous versions. Yep. So if you go to the previous release, there's not much usually that you'll have to change. If you go to version 5100 compared to now, there's going to be a lot of changes. So those Inlists might not be useful, except that, well, there's a start. It's a starting point, and you just have to change so that it goes with the new version.
Yep.
The new release. Cool.
Very good. First tutorial. We'll pop back out to our quick start.
So of course, if after doing all of that, there are still questions that have not been answered, of course, because you are asked to join the Mesa users list when you download Mesa, you can always post your question to Mesa users list, and usually within a few days, you will have an answer.
Usually.
Right.
Depends on the quality of the question. And also who's available. Not everybody is available all the time. And sometimes users will ask a question that is highly specific that nobody actually knows the answer to, without getting into nitty-gritty detail about the science being run, and that takes time and effort, and it's a little more hit and miss. But in general, we're pretty good about replying. Indeed. Great.
So hopefully this will help you get started on using Mesa, and also on asking the right question on Mesa users list.
Absolutely. Cool. And I want to thank you so much for sharing your time.
Thank you, Frank, for inviting me.
Your evening. I'm walking through the quick start guide for Mesa. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.